ASEAN Daily. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, good morning. This is Arlene and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Apologies. This is Arlene and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today we are going to talk about news from Southeast Asia. And of course, to start off, we start with Malaysia, our own country. As we all know, Malaysia is unfortunately infamous for the issues regarding on human trafficking. And in fact, in the Malaysia's track record, we had fell from the second tier to the third tier in the US report on human trafficking in Malaysia. So in the case of human trafficking, not much has been done by the government or by the Malaysian government, but in this time there is some feedback from the Home Minister, Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi. What he said is there will be amendments to laws on preventing human trafficking, which will help to strengthen Malaysia's effort at combating human trafficking. And he said that the anti-trafficking in person and anti-smuggling of migrants bill, which will be tabled in Parliament next month, will ensure that Malaysia's actions against trafficking are in tandem with international standards. The international standards of human trafficking, which will mean that it's not just in terms of strengthening the policies and the law, but also in terms of implementation, because in Malaysia, a lot of the human trafficking happened under the nose of the authorities, and this is a major problem for Malaysia's position if it wants to be taken seriously at the international arena. He also added that Malaysia has an obligation as a member of the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime and the Protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. And it will also help to improve Malaysia's position in, of course, the report, the US report on trafficking in person, where Malaysia hasn't been performing that well within the Southeast Asia region. And in fact, he mentioned this after receiving a courtesy call from the UN Special Rapporteur on trafficking in persons, especially women and children, Maria Grazia Glamarino, yesterday. Dr. Ahmad Zahid said that Malaysia is definitely committed to improve the initiative to combat the crime. He added that 1,058 arrests were made between 2008 and 2014 under the Act. But is it good enough in terms of trying to eradicate? Maybe not necessarily eradicate, but to reduce the numbers, because human trafficking in Malaysia is one of the worst in Southeast Asia, and usually Malaysia would be used as the center point between different as the center point to from one country to another country. Let's say, for example, if a person want to traffic from a person from Myanmar to maybe another first world country like Australia, Malaysia will be the focal point, and that's dangerous because Malaysia is geographically strategic in Southeast Asia, and being a very peaceful and stable country is also easier for traffickers to move along and do their job, since the law in Malaysia are not entirely strongly enforced, as be seen by the complaints by the local towards the local authorities. And a UPR process on the evaluation of human rights records for all members country, which includes Malaysia. It is a report that is being reviewed every 4 years. It's called the Universal Periodical Review, UPR. was tabled by Glenn Marinaro, and is a Pfizer visit that he added that Glenn Marinaro added that Malaysia needs to strengthen its commitment and pledge, and also to ensure that we really uphold the UN human rights declaration on trafficked humans. Glenn Marinaro is also expected to provide recommendations to Malaysia on human trafficking prevention efforts, and her reports on Malaysia to the UNHCR in June. Malaysia, as we all know, since last year has been downgraded to the lowest ranking among 188 countries. This is according to the US report. We are not just in the third tier, but we are actually in the same category, guess what, with Zimbabwe, North Korea, and Saudi Arabia. Another update on another update from Malaysia is about the Anwar's court case. Yes, we all know that he was found guilty by the court, and a lot of people cried out that the judiciary system in Malaysia is broken, and the trial itself was unfair. But there's a follow-up to this. The follow-up was that the wife of the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim, together with his wife actually, has been seeking for royal pardon to ensure that Anwar will not be further persecuted and being unfairly persecuted in this case. In fact, what was being seen at that during the court was Malaysia's higher court actually rejected Anwar's appeal against a 2014 sodomy conviction and upheld a 5-year prison term, which is very long, and will likely end a political career marked by controversy. So Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim's family is definitely pushing forward to seek for a royal pardon. In fact, his second son, Nurul Nuha, has submitted an appeal for the royal pardon in belief that Anwar is innocent. This is what she said, that by virtue of Article 42 of the Federal Constitution, they hope that the royal institution would be in the name of justice based on all facts, grant and appeal. They would pursue the whatever methods available in order for them to ensure that their only sole father, which is Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, can seek justice for their father as a citizen of Malaysia. In fact, PKR Communications Director Fahmi Fazil told one of the local newspaper in Malaysia, said that despite seeking a pardon, an application for a review of the federal court's decision would go ahead as planned. PKR's leaders had initially denied that Anwar's family would seek a royal pardon, but it seems like they are doing so. Maybe they will do whatever they can to get Anwar Ibrahim out of the prison. However, what is being seen as the latest move would seem that the opposition leader is being disqualified as a member of parliament at the end of 14-day period to file a petition for pardon. So they filed it at the very wee hour on the February. On 2 days before earlier. And from Malaysia, we move to Philippines. So as we all know, the Philippines is marked by a huge controversy on the southern part of Philippines, and not just any controversy, but in terms of how the spreading of extremist belief and extremist and terrorism is definitely tempering the peaceful coexistence of the people on the southern Philippines. So the headline that we want to ask is, the MILF, which is one of the extremist group, rebel group in the southern Philippines, are they training with the Abu Sayyaf rebels in Sulu? This is a very, very strong allegation because MILF has been seen as the more cooperative one compared to Abu Sayyaf, which is seen as a real deal terrorist group. But this is actually based on a photo that was being shown where members of Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF, allegedly being seen training in Sulu with the presence of the Abu Sayyaf group. According to the government peace panel chair, Miriam Coronel Farrell, she presented at the Senate in the Philippines, saying that they are asking the ceasefire mechanism to do their own checking. There's a report from the ceasefire committee about their own analysis. And according to her also, the photo that was allegedly showing the MILF group training together with the Abu Sayyaf group is being validated. And a copy of the report will be submitted to the Senate. Photos sent to the Senate Grace Poe by Sulu Vice Governor Abdul Sakur Tan showed training and recruitment by MILF in Panglima Estino municipality in Sulu. He would like the officer of the presidential advisor on the peace process to look into the said allegation, as these developments have raised fear among ordinary citizens. The image in the photos show that high-powered firearm being used during training. These activities are provocative actions which are inimical to the security of the people of the Philippines. It also violates the implementing operational guidelines on the cessation of hostilities between the Philippines government and the MILF. As we all know, MILF has previously signed a peaceful agreement with the Philippines government, so this is definitely a breach of trust between two parties. And according to the politicians, that there are some identified personalities and some private and armed groups in terms of weaponry. It is very sensitive because of the nature of politics in Mindanao. This is what she referred as to political alliance emerging in 2016. While presidential advisor on the peace process, Teresita Dallas, said that it is not only political but political with a possibility of violence. Unfortunately, violence may break out between parties if information will be disclosed about the said photo. It was the West Mindanao Command that provided information on the photo. Hopefully, the photo is not from social media, because nowadays a lot of people, including, terrorist groups, are sharing a lot of their secrets in social media, which is quite dangerous to both parties. And the MILF and negotiated chairman Mok Gader Iqbal could not confirm the authenticity of the photo, but he said he was first presented about the photo at a congressional hearing last month. It merely stated that in the hearing showing the MILF is recruiting fighters in Sulu, it doesn't mean that they were with Abu Sayyaf. This is what Mohander Iqbal said. He might be right, because a photo can mean 1,000 things, and it doesn't mean that what we see is what the reality is. It could be just a few members in MILF that is being seen with Abu Sayyaf, or it could be the other way around. But it doesn't mean that the whole group of MILF, which is kind of a loosely based group, is aligning itself with the ideology and the struggle of Abu Sayyaf. So in a sense, we should leave it open and let the authorities in the Philippines, as well as a representative from MILF, to address this issue amicably, because at the end of the day, peace in Mindanao means a lot for the people of southern Philippines, especially people of Bangsa Moro. Anyway, we'll take a short break. When we return, we will discuss about Singapore's latest budget 2015. Just to give a bit of a breakdown and some feedback from the government of Singapore.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, you're back again with Arlene, and of course we are going to resume our news commentary on Southeast Asia. Before we talk about Singapore's budget 2015, let's talk about a breaking news that is happening in Myanmar right now. So, dozen injured as prison convoy attack in Myanmar. This is according to Myanmar's media. Dozens of female prisoners were injured in a fierce fight between rebels and soldiers in northeastern Myanmar following an attack on a government convoy. And Myanmar last week declared a state of emergency in Koh Kang in response to the conflict, which began on February 9 and has also sparked alarm in Beijing. The unrest has virtually emptied the main Koh Kang town of Lakai, the epicenter of the fighting, with streets in the once bustling frontier community transformed into a battleground. The situation there is getting from bad to worse, and at first it was just a typical ethnic civil fight that usually would break out in Myanmar. As we all know, there are pockets of rebel groups that aren't necessarily in line with the vision and also the ruling of the central government in Myanmar. But it seems like the situation is getting worse, because it's the rebel groups seems to be very much determined to really put their stance forward. So according to the Global New Light of Myanmar, said that the military launched airstrike after ethnic Koh Kang fighters attacked vehicle carrying local people, government workers and inmates from a nearby prison. This is based on the latest assault on civilians trying to escape deadly clashes in the Shan state. There are 44 female prisoners as well as a staff member from the correctional department and a soldier were injured in the fighting at Koh Kang region bordering China. And what is being seen, at least 30,000 civilians have fled into southwest China, which of course Beijing is worried about it, while tens of thousands more are believed to have been displaced on the Myanmar side of the border. The Myanmar Red Cross has come under attack twice in recent days while ferrying civilians from the Lakwai area towards the Shan town of Lashio outside the conflict zone. The incidents have drawn condemnations from the United Nations. While it seems like Myanmar has blamed the rebel groups for the assault on the aid vehicle, a very easy way of trying to point fingers. But the claim is being denied by the Myanmar Nationalities Democratic Alliance Army, the main Koh Kang insurgent group. Representative of the Alliance Army could not immediately be reached to comment on Thursday attack, but it seems like it's a bit unclear on how many people remain in the remote Koh Kang region. It definitely has turned into a battleground. It's almost cut off from help by any aid group since the attack with the Red Cross, and apparently now they are under martial law, so there's no official figures on the civilian death. So to update on Singapore, as we all know, Singapore's budget has definitely sparked a more people-centered uh, focus in terms of its budget distribution. And what is being claimed is the median wages increased 6 times since 1965. This is being claimed by the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam when the Singapore Budget 2015 was being released. And the claim was made, the statement was made because, as we all know, in recent times, especially when we look at issues like the Little India riot, a lot of the problems that is happening right now in Singapore is definitely socio-economically linked. A lot of people are complaining about the high cost of living, the low the stagnation of wages, as well as the kind of livelihood that typical Singaporeans could not afford anymore. But it seems like Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Ministers is actually quite optimistic about the wage issue. In fact, he said that comparing wages from lower income Singaporeans then and now, the factory worker at a rubber slipper factory then would earn 87 Sing dollar a month. Today, a lower income Singaporean worker would earn about 1,860 Sing dollar, which is about an increase of 5.5 times after adjusting for inflation. So, in a sense, they did adjust it for inflation, but another sense, it was in the 1960s. So a lot of things were cheap, even in Malaysia. If you talk about, when I was a kid, just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, an ice cream or a popsicle would cost only 10 to 20 cents. But in today's high cost of living, it would probably cost 1 ringgit or 2 ringgit just for a tiny popsicle. So, yeah, wages did increase, but at the same time, we have to look at the cost of living. It's probably more than 5.5 times, and after adjusting for inflation, if you're talking about how people can afford homes and other basic needs, healthcare and all. But that's just a point of view from Malaysia. But from the point of view of Singapore the budget itself is not really focusing towards redistributing to those who are vulnerable and needy, especially the senior citizen. But also, Singapore has raised taxes on the rich to aid social spending. See? Singapore is not all capitalistic, right? At least it seems so. And Singapore has announced that income tax rises for the top 5% of the population to fund rising social spending targeted at the poor and elderly in the rapidly aging city-state. The marginal personal income tax rate for those earning above 320,000 Sing dollar a year will rise to 22% next year from the current 20%. Finance Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam told Parliament when he unveiled the 2015 budget. The increase is expected to raise an additional 400 million Sing dollar to government's current revenue of 61.35 billion Sing dollar. So everyone is contribute something for a better Singapore. So the rich should contribute more, right? Well, it depends on what kind of ideological stance that you are standing. But personally, from myself, I think when it comes to social spending, it's definitely shouldn't be cut. I personally don't believe in austerity measure that much, but I do believe that the rich should give their portion of the share more and in terms of taxation. But at the same time, in terms of increase in wages, I think it's also both the role of government and private sector to raise the wages of workers in line in line with their productivity and not reduce and cut costs in terms of wage spending just so that the owner of the company or those in the top management can have better surpluses. And I don't think that would actually help the country in the long run. So in a way, increase in tax is just one of the ways to ensure that there are better social spending. Of course, the long run would be to ensure that there would be less wage stagnation and a better living standard for majority of Singaporeans as well as majority of Southeast Asian. So that's all for our news commentary today. We will continue tomorrow. The same kind of news from Southeast Asia. Let us know if you think that we should report more on certain news. But in the meantime, just want to let you know that 9 o'clock later we will have a durian hit. We will talk about Myanmar later on.